Hello everyone, this is your friendly neighborhood Chinese man and welcome to today's sort of Convallaria video. So I was actually working on this tier list which you guys see over here, and I have done my research on different sources between the TW as well as the CN side. So I've come to this final compilation of the visual graphic representation for you guys to know what units I'm talking about, and then I have the Chinese explanation which I'll be translating for you guys to talk about why these characters are on the different tiers, why they are good, why they are there, how are they performing moving forward in the next few months, because these sources are, I'll say, a few months in for some of them. And I will be covering from T0, which is the best units on release, all the way to T2, right? If you get any unit that's in the T3 category, don't train them. Like if you're in the T3, chances are you have better 4-star or SSR orange color characters that can replace them. So these characters, they are skippable, so I'm not gonna focus too much on them, and most of them are husbandos, so I don't think that many people will be bothered. So that's for the tier list explanation. And before we start, right, I'll be including all the links I can find in the description down below, so you guys can refer to it yourself. And another thing that I want to point out, or I want to disclaim before we begin, I'm using this tier list because this tier list is updated on the 22nd of November 2023, and it is probably the most highly relevant to global release in terms of the unit roster, because I have done my research, I have watched some of the YouTube videos with regards to sort of Convallaria out there, and a lot of them refers to this tier list as the global release tier list. So as a friendly neighborhood Chinese man right here, let me just explain how this tier list works, or what is this tier list about. So this is 角色节奏榜. So this is the character tier list, which was last updated on the 2nd of February 2024. So right here, right, this one, you can actually click on the character to talk about the different characters, individual explanation as well as guide. So it is a very comprehensive coverage. It is a very comprehensive guide. It also covers all the different categories from PvP to the Tower of Trials to your standard story pushing, as well as beginner friendly characters itself. However, right, this tier list was last updated on the 2nd of February. So this game on the Taiwan server released on the 8th of August 2023. And on the CN side, it got released on the November 23rd, 2023. So you can say that this tier list came after all these servers got released, and it's not like a 1 or 2 week update kind of thing. It is like a 3 or 4 months down the road update. So this tier list, I'll say it's not global release tier list, because based on my research, some of the units here, they are not available on global release. Units like Sonia, right, units like Momo, the cat lady over here, as well as units like Ale Kersier. So I think this is called Alexandra, or just call him Alex. So these 3 characters, I couldn't find them on a lot of many other guides on global release, so I'm assuming they are not available. So the 4th guy on the T0.5 tier, Simona, so I think it's Simone is also not available based on my other research. So this is the list that I'm referring to, right? So this one is 角色榜单. This is from the CN side, and then there's also this one by the NGA, which is CN side as well. So this one, if you take a look at all the characters here, some of the characters which I pointed out earlier is not available, right? If you guys can dig deeper, you guys can understand Chinese, you guys can go and find all the opening server tier lists provided by many different players out there, and some of these characters are not there. So what I can say is this tier list is highly accurate if you want to use it to future proof your units, right? Some of these units got stronger because of future banners, which is like 3 months into the game. Some of them got stronger because of introduction of new mechanics as well as game mode. But on global release, some of these units, right, they are not as strong, or they might be a lot weaker by these tier list standards, because this is a later tier list. So some of these characters, they got stronger, some of them got weaker, so they got repositioned accordingly. Okay, so with those disclaimers out of the way, let us start with today's tier list. This is the tier list at a glance. I'll go through them individually. So I'll be covering T0 all the way to T2, because based on the different sources I have, I think for T3 side, most of the statements I got is, if you get these units, either abandon your account, reroll for a new one, or you should train up all the other characters other than this, or train up your SSR 4-star characters instead. So basically they're just not really good. And if you take a look at Gamers Key's future proof tier list itself, some of them are pretty low in list, right? So honestly speaking, since they're not that like powerful, they're not that future proof, I'm not going to talk too much about them. So if you're interested in them or you want to go against the flow, then you guys can definitely train these 5 male characters here, but I wouldn't advise that. Okay, so now before we start talking about the tiers as well as the explanations, I'm going to talk about the elemental counters in this game. So we have this basic Pokemon elemental counter, so green counter blue, blue counter red, and red counter green, so your grass, water, fire element. And then there's this yellow counter purple, so this arrow means that this faction or this element, they do more damage to the other one that they are pointing to. So blue does more damage to red, red does more damage to green, and then green does more damage to blue, right? So on and so forth. At the same time, right, if you're attacking a stronger element than you, you actually do less damage as well. So generally, if you take a look at this graph over here, the yellow color element or the watcher element is the strongest in terms of the factional side of things, because there's no like direct counter, and they actually counter the destroyer class, which is the purple element itself. So they are very strong as an element, and there will be a lot of units from this element that are higher up in the list itself. So let's go into T0 category. So we have 2 T0 watchers or the yellow element units. Number 1 is Inanna, the lady in the red robe. So she is one of the 2 UR healers in the game to be released on global release, and she is very powerful defensively as a healer, as a buffer, as well as her really amazing faction which increases her survivability. Even though her defensive stat isn't the best, but because she doesn't take more damage from another faction, she is very flexible, and you can form this full watcher team with Gloria as well as other watcher factions itself, because it's quite strong defensively with little elemental counters. Other than that, right, other than being very powerful as a healer, other than being an amazing buffer, she also has debuff removal as well as damage boost for the team, making her insanely versatile for different situations, as well as even just a universal team build itself. However, right, from this role, right, the healer role, it is a very supportive role, and from the point of view where you are talking about just simple healing or just pure sustain for your team, you have many other choices out there. So you have the other UR healer down here, and then you have quite a few, I'll say, SSR 4-star healers or units with a lot of healing capabilities as well. So in terms of the second line of explanation, she is not an irreplaceable character, because there are other characters that can do her healing job, but she's the strongest because she's the most versatile. Other than healing, she has a lot of other utility as well, very flexible team building, very powerful faction. That's why she's T0 on global release. And if you were to do a cross reference to Gamer's Key, she is also very future proof. In fact, the T0 here as well as the T0 here is the same list. And if you take a look at this one, in terms of the T0 side, right, Inanna fell off a bit, but I think this is because she's probably because more supportive in nature. So there are other considerations when you talk about the support, like the cost to develop the character, as well as maybe the other game modes where you don't need a support or you don't need a healer. So in that case, right, based on her position, she's the strongest, but she's not a must-have character. So that's for Inanna, the very first lady on the left. On the other hand, the second unit, Gloria, this unit is relatively irreplaceable because she's super duper well-rounded. She does AoE single target self buff with the ability to boost damage, reduce her own damage, as well as a very powerful faction. So she is pretty irreplaceable because she's future proof, and even till this day in some of the latest tier lists on the TWSCN side, she is still one of the top tier units out there. So her longevity is very good, and she's very versatile, and on top of that, she's very powerful, very good for different game modes. So definitely one of the top tier units that you want to reroll for. So this is Gloria, second unit over here. And then let's scroll down the list. Pardon me, my nose got blocked for a little bit there. So the second unit, right, we have the banner up characters. So we have Barrow the mage, and then we have Cole the assassin. So both these units at the start of the game, they are insanely powerful. Barrow personally is one of the units I got, which I can show you guys right here. So I'm gonna share my experience using Barrow so far. So let me go into my game, let me do some digging, going to my characters page. So this is Barrel over here. So she is one of the strongest damager in the game, because if we take a look at her skill set over here, she has massive AoE potential. She also has the ability to burn the enemy, which is sustained damage over time, the ability to heal herself, the ability to just do a lot more damage, as well as reduce damage taken, and also the ability to regenerate her own energy. So this is a skill, and her talent or her own inbuilt ability can also recover energy. So she is a unit that doesn't run too low on energy, and she can spam her skill a lot. So if you combine that with her ability to buff herself, to heal herself, to protect herself, as well as her ability to just do a lot of magical damage, she is one of the top tier carries on global release, at least from the banner up side. So the weakness for her is she's quite a slow character, and her movement speed or her movement tower range isn't exactly the best, but she makes up for it by her insane long range. So this is the range on one of her base skill, this is the range on one of her like early game skills itself. They're all really long range. So despite her low mobility, she is relatively long reach in terms of her attack range. So she is very well rounded, very powerful, and very future proof. So next one, we talk about the Cole over here. So this assassin, I don't use him, and I don't see him a lot on the arena side of things, because I think this unit at the start is really strong, right? In the 3 months down the road in this tier list itself, Cole is still one of the T0 characters as well. However, right, in the later iterations of the CN and TW tier list, I think he has fallen off, but it is like, I would say 6 to 7 months down the road. So I guess Cole as a character is still pretty future proof, right? Because you might not know whether or not you're still playing the game 6 to 7 months down the road anyway. So this character, very powerful assassin on game release. So based on the description over here, right, Barrel is a very powerful damage dealer, right? Can do damage, can support the team with massive AoE, as well as very stable development for different teams based on the element itself, because Destroyer is also a relatively good class defensively, because it's not countered by the other factions other than the Watcher class itself. And right, this is the starter banner character, so you can obtain the both of them relatively easily, but based on the recommendation, if you get any one of them, then chances are you should be saving your resources for future better banners. So that's the description right here. Okay, so for Cole, right, start off as a T0 character, but in the mid-late game stage, his power level will drop a little bit. So I believe it's like a few months down the road, or maybe into the later levels, like maybe level 50 plus, or maybe even level 60. So generally, both of them are definitely T0 on global release, but Cole is probably one with lesser longevity. So that's for this list. And let's go down to the T1 category. So we have Lily Whale, right? Lily Whale. So this Lily Whale is a character that is more late game centric. So late game centric in the sense, if you take a look at her description right here, 因前期拿不到核心技能，所以前期不好用，因此55级前都是用神恩顶着，但是后期一旦技能成型，它将一跃成为弓箭一节。Okay, so this line means that this character doesn't get her core skill or her powerful skills in the earlier game, because based on the level system, you only unlock the skills based on the different tiers. So in order to unlock the maximum level, I think it's level 60, right? That's the late game skill. So for Lily Whale, her powerful skill lies in the later part of her kit, which makes her a very late game-ish character. And at the same time, this character, right, this character can attack through terrain, and the ultimate, right, 疾风炮 or 疾风破 is a direct shot as well. So it gets 乘风 buff and a very long 5 tower range, so very long reach character. So generally, based on the different description right here, this is the, I'll say, like the late game reasons why this character is really powerful. But Lily Whale right here is T1, probably because in the early game you'll find her to be relatively weak, but if you have the patience as well as the resources to train her up, or if you do get her and then you just use her along until the late game, she will change to become an extraordinary character. So that's for Lily Whale. And then we have Samantha, which is another yellow element character, so watcher category as well. So Samantha is the second healer in the UR class. So in terms of healing, right, this character is the strongest, even stronger than Inanna. But Inanna is more versatile because she provides more utility for the team. And in terms of her own self-protective mechanism, right, it is very good as well, which greatly increases her own survivability. So very good to use character, very beginner friendly, because for this game itself, if you position your characters wrongly, or if you don't understand the mechanics too well and your characters are very frail, they get sniped off really easily. So certain characters have defensive skill which gives damage reduction, boosted defense, or reduce the attack of the enemies to increase their own survivability. So I think Samantha is one of them that can boost her own survivability, which makes her a pretty good beginner friendly character healer if you do get her. Okay, so that's for this one. Okay, next we move on to the other two T1. The male character, Dandelion, I think this character is on the sort of Convallaria page already. So very highly recommended, because this character is both offense and defense together, very well-rounded, can do damage as well as support, and is very, I'll say, like a friendly on resources. Okay, 光环阵容极易组成，完美契合，不动如山，与主绝对。Okay. Okay, so very flexible with the strongest team element. 光环阵容. Okay. So his offense has a very big AoE, right? Can do both close range as well as range combat, and is not restricted by the terrains. It is one thing that you might want to consider, and has multiple different ways to attack the enemies. So very core. The core skills are unlocked pretty early into the game, and this describes all the different skills over here. Okay, so this is a very well-rounded husbando character that deals all-rounded damage. So if you take a look at Gamer's Key rating for Dandelion, Dandelion is T0.5, so relatively future-proof as well. So Lilywheel as well as Dandelion as well as Samantha, these three characters, they are relatively future-proof. So for the last one, we have Nono Wheel. Okay, so Nono Wheel on this tier list is T1, but Nono Wheel, in terms of the description, is a very decent supplementary character which can support the other characters to increase their damage, right? Increases carries damage as well as decent damage output, right? But in terms of general must-haveness, or whether or not you must have this unit, is not a must, because there is going to be the other waifu character here, right? This T1 rabbit here, which does a similar role as her, so she does have a replacement, and in terms of her damage output, is not like the best. So she is also a decent single target damage dealer, but she is far from the top damage dealer like Barrow as well as Lilywheel in the late game. So generally, I think she is probably the weaker one of T1, but if you do get her at the start of the game, you can definitely still train her up to use her as a secondary carry to buff up your main carry in the team. So that's for Nono Wheel, the fourth T1 character over here. So next we talk about T2. T2 side has quite a few characters, so I will try to make it quick, right? Make it concise for you guys. So T2, the first male character, his Chinese name is called Fa Ka, right? So the direct translation is Fakao over here. So this is a free story free character that you can get from the story, right? He has pretty limited power level based on this description right here. So his strength lies in the fact that this character is a free UR character. So when you compare like a 1 copy UR to 1 copy SSR, generally he'll do better, but as you power up your SSRs, your SSR archers out there could probably replace him. And in terms of future proving, right, if you take a look at the future proving, his position drops pretty low into the T2 side for the Gamer's Key website, so I don't think he's very future proof. So if you're thinking about future proofing your team itself, he's probably not the go-to choice, and that's my opinion. And the next one, we have the Destroyer, which is the purple element over here. The very first character is called Guzman. So Guzman's general defensive stats as well as stats distribution is very well distributed. Okay, he has a self revive mechanics as well as very good defensive power to tank on the front line for the team. Decent offensive power as well. Very good character for a long drawn out battle. Okay, but the issue with Guzman right here is the team building choices, because he has a lot of replacement, and if you don't have Guzman, there are other tanks out there or other frontliners that can do his job. And you know, even if you don't have Guzman, despite him being a very good character, or rather a T2 character, he is replaceable. So you don't have to just go for this character, even though he looks quite cool, right? A character clad in black armor. Then we have the second purple character, right? So I couldn't find the English description for this character, so based on the direct translation, her name is called Lugao. So Lugao is very special. This character, right, has a lot of skill combination based on the different skills distribution. So people go for the normal attack build for her, but you need and the normal attack build is a lot easier to use, and the equipment requirements is also not very complicated. So her strength as well as her weakness is very obvious, because this character is very reliant on having good equipments as well as good teammates to make her a good damage dealer. But towards the late game, right, this character is going to be really powerful because of her late game skills, but in the early to mid game she will be slightly weaker. So similar to Lilywheel on top, more of a super mega late game character if you do train her up. So that's for the third character right here. Then we have the other pink hair. So the pink hair is from the Seeker class, so it's called Gracia. So Gracia has really high mobility. Okay, 个性全由第一提供巨额攻击加成。Okay, so right, if we go by the description right here, this character unlocks the core skill really early, right? Has self heal, and the skill has no, I'll say, cooldown period. So once you get the full star, this character has a 40% defense penetration or defense penetration block, and the #1 in terms of damage output. But from my vibe of this character, right, so this character is a pretty future-proof character because she got upgraded from T2 to T1. I think the issue why she's not higher is because of her team versatility. Because if you take a look at this, 伤害全由第一, right, in terms of all the different damage ability as well as all the different buffs she can get, she is a very powerful damage dealer. But the thing is, her team building versatility is not as high because you might want to build a team specifically for her. So that's why she might not be like the most beginner friendly character. Generally, if you are somebody who wheels a lot, right, if you get her to the 5-star for the talent itself, you need like quite a few copies of her, then she will be insanely powerful in damage dealing. And with that amount of resources you can develop into, I mean, you can pour into the game, you will be able to build a team around her to make her very powerful. So that is why she's in T2, because she's not that team flexible and she's relatively weak late game and more wheel centric, right, for people with more resources. So that's for the pink hair lady, the 4th lady. And then we have our free character Ravia. So her Chinese name is called 大姐 because just a bit of spoiler in the story, she's like this big sister that takes care of the main character as well as Maisha down there. So they are like a crew from the sort of Convallaria faction. So that's why they call her 大姐. Okay, so this character, very good in a sense. She is highly mobile, has self-heal, as well as multiple buffs to make herself deal more damage. And if you take a look at the gamer's key rating itself, she's currently still at T1, but in some of the later tier lists or some of the later patches on the CN side, she actually rose up to be one of the top tier characters. So that is if you're playing the game for quite a while, she will get there. And since she's free, right, and you get a copy of her from the beginner mission page itself, right, she is quite a beginner friendly character. So if you do get her and you don't have a stronger choices, I highly suggest you guys train her, because she has AoE, high mobility, self-survival, very decent character to tier up because she's cheap, she's free from the story, and you get one copy of her. And then if you do get more copies, then her talent levels will increase as well. Generally quite powerful, all-rounded character. So next we talk about the green color class, so the defender class. Okay, so defender class, right? The first one is called Magnus. So Magnus is also like a frontliner type of character. Very defensive with decent buffs. Okay. So I think Magnus is in T2 right here. In general, I think as a frontliner, Magnus is a lot better as a very good frontliner to hold the fort. But in terms of the early game, or in terms of like being beginner friendly, this character is probably not the most optimal option. So that's why he's in T2, right? But as you move towards the late game, once you have a very complete team, once you go into the min-maxing, once you go into like mixing and matching all the different characters to form a very powerful team, the power level of Magnus will go up. So if we go into this tier list over here, our dear Magnus actually went up over here into the T1 category. So this is 3 months after the release, so I guess also a pretty future-proof frontliner. Yeah, so the reason why it's in T2 at the start is probably because in the early to mid game, probably not the most flexible tank, that's why he's here. And then next we have Maisha. So Maisha is also one of the beginners character. So this character, he's very strong in the early game. She's like a guardian defender type of character that tanks damage, heal the team, and then draw damage to herself as I'll say like a mid shield. So so her star level is not very important. Okay, you can use her, right, because she's already available in the early game. So if you're a free-to-play player, you'll definitely get her. You can use her to farm for the UR shards from the character shards on a daily basis, and then slowly get her up through the star system if you are free to play. But generally not recommended to go for her, right? And she's not that powerful in the late game. Like based on the different tier lists right here, for example, she's T1. So I think T1 is still fine, but in some of the later CN tier lists, she has fallen off to T2, and some people even give her T3 in terms of her rating. So that's for Maisha. So that's for this defender, Maisha and Magnus. Lastly, we have our dear Thaddeus, right? Thaddeus or Thaddeus. So Thaddeus word 硬，非常的硬，全游第一。物方面板. So this character is very hot. very hot. One of the strongest defensive character, right? A bunch of good defensive skills that can make him an insanely powerful tank, but this character is very low on mobility, has limited damage, and very hard to position well with him. So moving forward, right, this character is not gonna be that strong, and is not very powerful from the magical defense side of things. So in this game, there's magical defense from the mages. There's also the physical defense from your assassins as well as archers. So this character is powerful on the physical defense side, but not that powerful on the magical defense side. And looking at this gamer's key tier list right here, this character also fell off into the T3 category, and I can see why, because even if you're a tank, right, if you can't keep up with your team, for example, because some maps that are very big, you can't keep up with your team, that is kind of pointless. And because it's only defensively good on the physical defense side, yeah, I can see why he falls off in terms of longevity itself. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this tier list, right? For the T1 all the way to T2, I'm gonna put the tier list positions over here so you guys can take a look at the characters portrait and then familiarize yourself with it before the global release. So moving forward, I'll be releasing the reroll guide as to how to reroll properly, as well as my own reroll plan on the global release. So stay tuned for that, right? Thank you very much for tuning in. Do remember to like and subscribe to see more videos from the channel. I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye guys!